I am happy to be able to tell you that in the city of Long Beach, they have a plan. And I hope that there are other cities around the globe who have some fantastic plans as well. But today, we'll be talking to the professionals from the city of Long Beach. So I tell you what we want to do is make sure that everyone gets this information. My first guest on our roster today is none other than our city official, our Vice Mayor, Rex Richardson. Rex, we are so excited to have you join us today. You are a person who is the councilman of the city. Prior to becoming vice mayor, you have worked in the economic area of your city. You have founded organizations to help people be able to come to the table. You are the perfect person to be here today to help represent the city of Long Beach. And it is my pleasure to have you tell us a little bit about the plans that you have in the area of economic development for the city of Long Beach.
Sure.
Rex, it's all yours.
Well, certainly thank you for the introduction. A year ago, I was excited for 2020. I was eager to see my daughter's first days of kindergarten, going on campus, that entire experience. I was excited to open new restaurants that we worked for many years and new banks in my community. And I think it's safe to say that our expectations have all changed, and we have a new operating on a new set of expectations. It's also safe to say that with cases continuing to rise and stay-at-home orders returning and restrictions elevating, much of our collective future still remains uncertain. It's been a difficult time for people, and it's really been a crisis on multiple fronts. I mean, we already know that we were having an ongoing conversation about equity and economic equity in our city prior to the pandemic. What we saw and what we learned from the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic is that it exacerbated the problems, the underlying inequities that our city already had. Like prior to this, we knew we had a narrative to tell two cities, two very different economic outlooks for families in our city, very different health outlooks, a difference of, some say 17 years, some say 7 years, but a wide difference in life expectancy depending on which zip code you live in within our city. And I won't say much about that because we do have our city health officer, Anissa Davis, and I know she likes to focus on some of those things. But what I will say is there is an alignment happening right now in that there is hope on the horizon. We know what we've all been through. We know that we're at a significant moment right now, but there is discussion of the vaccine. We know that vaccines have been in their final approval process for some time. We know that we in the city of Long Beach have begun the process of developing plans for distribution on an initial phase. We know that federally, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris will be sworn in, and they vowed to lead a science-based federal pandemic response, as well as pursue a robust economic response. Here in Long Beach, we have our own crisis on the ground, and we have an immediate need to continue to help people, help our businesses, help keep our residents safe and reduce the rate of infection. But sometimes it's challenging. You may have small businesses who say, hey, why me? Why are you shutting down my business? So back to my point, I'm reminded what Dr. Steinman said. And what he said was that the economic costs of more restrictive orders are much lower than the costs of failing to contain the virus and shutting down the economy completely once again. The stay-at-home orders are really the medicine. It's the economic medicine to prevent a larger economic heart attack. So what he's doing is he's asking us to come together, band together, and weather short-term pain for long-term gain. Short-term pain for long-term gain. And so we know that these short-term pain, it affects our families and our businesses, but we're not helpless. We can work together now and rally and focus and join forces, city council, community-based organizations around a new collective focus. It's time for us now to begin to develop a comprehensive strategy for a more resilient and more equitable economic future for our city. And there's a lot of things we have to consider. We need to balance how we bring back industries and jobs that have been paused by the pandemic. Many of the people of our communities work in service-based jobs. Some of them are booming, like grocery workers, but some of them, like service and hospitality, they've been out of work for a very long time.
Rex, I know that you are a person that truly believes in collaboration on behalf of the city of Long Beach. And so how are you collaborating with some of those industries in order to kind of kickstart some of those businesses and industries?
Right. So everyone's going to have a seat at the table, right? So we've been in a different, what I'm getting to is we're going through a phase. It started with immediate relief. When the pandemic first started, it was relief. Let's get resources out and address the relief. Then it became a transition. The transition period was basically, how do we go from this is a big crisis, this is an emergency, to now focusing on resiliency and working with businesses, do things like convert your operation to go outside, get restaurants to put their seating outside and begin to weather the storm. That's the transition phase. Like, how do we transition from the way we operated before, which may not be healthy, to how we're going to operate now? That took resources. The city of Long Beach deployed, $20 million in CARES Act funding to the community for that purpose. But now what I'm getting to is that we're changing now. We're going into a recovery. This is all new. This is about bringing everyone to the table and uniting under one collective focus. The recovery has to be not just economic, it has to be social recovery as well, right? You have to think about the condition of the people and the condition of our economy. So all of it dovetails together to one comprehensive recovery strategy. Our racial equity work dovetails into it. Our vaccination plan dovetails into it. All the things we have to do are all aligned under this one mission, which is the recovery of our city. That's where we're going in. And so for the next 3 months, what we have to really do between January and beginning of April is put together our strategy in alignment with what the federal government is doing and the regional government is doing, so that we can align with resources, any federal resources that may come down for stimulus or relief dollars. Make sure our plans are ready. We don't have time to wait until they ask us, what do you need? You need to have your plan in place today. And we have enough data, and we've already started that process. We worked with Cal State Long Beach to commission an economic equity study. And that is breaking out the impacts that this pandemic is already having on our communities. And it's telling us some very interesting information. It shows that, if you are middle income or high income, economically, you're almost back to where you were prior to the pandemic. But if you are in a very low income or a poverty tier, if your family lives within that operation, as it relates to employment, you're still heading in the wrong direction. As it relates to sort of your economic outlook, is still heading in the wrong trajectory. So it's called a case style recovery.
So let me make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, Rex, for our studio audience.
Sure thing.
So you're saying that economically, there's always been a challenge.
Right.
And that challenge is continuing.
Right.
And that even though we have plans for the city of Long Beach, we've got an economic development plan, and you are putting things in place to be able to assist and help. There's still a trajectory that seems to kind of exacerbate the current conditions.
Right. So here's a shorter way, because I can be loquacious.
Okay.
Things before the pandemic needed to be addressed in terms of, we needed to be our economy needs to be more equitable. We needed poor people to have opportunities to have economic mobility. The pandemic has made that more difficult. Our economic gaps are wider now. What we have to do at this point now is have an inclusive and comprehensive recovery. By inclusive, we mean we can't just talk about restoring what we lost. We have to do better than that. We have to put economic tools in place and put resources in place for families who are or who were already not doing well prior to the pandemic. They're doing worse today. That means
I understand what you're saying.
Security, all of those things.
So you're saying we have to look at where we are now, and in this process of the transition and recovery, our goal has to be better than we were before.
Absolutely.
Statistically speaking.
So statistically speaking, here's how deeply it's impacted our community. So more than 1 million jobs in Southern California were lost in this pandemic. Most of those jobs were low wage, low skill positions often held by our most at-risk populations. Mm-hmm. 1 million jobs gone already. And our region now has a 21.5% poverty rate amongst Blacks. That's higher than what it was before. It's a 19% poverty rate amongst Latinos in our Southern California region. So
those are incredible numbers. Those are incredible numbers. So when you're parting, and as we move on to the next guest, Rex, what would you like us to definitely remember in terms of where the economic development plan is for the city of Long Beach?
So I think a couple things. So one, let's support our public health officials first. That's what we all can do. Again, the more we adhere to public health guidelines, it's going to be short-term pain, but we're talking about long-term gain. And the second thing that I would say is that we need to make sure as we prepare for this recovery, it is comprehensive and inclusive. Inclusive meaning everybody stands to benefit. Comprehensive meaning both sides of the brain, not just economically, but socially. And from a health standpoint, we have to recover. Our communities have been hurt. We have to acknowledge that, and we have to comprehensively and inclusively recover. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Rex Richardson. What a pleasure to have you with us today. And I'm sure that we'll have some more dialogue later on, and perhaps we'll repeat this whole event and be able to give an additional update. Thank you so much.